Feels like my cue. Hello everybody, good afternoon. Well, I'm very glad that you decided to kick off your Edinburgh TV Festival with us. Who needs Michael Sheen? Who needs him? So welcome to our panel today. We are From IP to XP, building immersive worlds for Gen Z. And if you're from news, I know that's a very sing-song title, I apologise. Now, before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. You may have noticed we've got our wonderful BSL interpreters there, so if you need interpretation, they will be there all the way through our session, interpreting everything we say. And if you haven't yet downloaded the app, now will be the time to do it, because that's how you submit questions for this. So we will have a question and answer session at the end, and you need to submit your questions through the app for me to be able to see them up here. So please do that. I can't wait to hear what you've got to ask. So today's panel is all about where the TV industry is going next. So we all know that TV shows are no longer confined to the screen. Today's audiences, especially Gen Z, are consuming stories across multiple touch points. They're not just watching, they're playing, they're creating. They are basically living inside the worlds that we build in gaming. They're hanging out in Roblox, they're building in Fortnite, they are scrolling on TikTok. These are the places that they spend hours every day. And in fact, they're starting to spend more time there than they do watching film or television. So of course, this presents a big opportunity. If you can bring your IP into these spaces in a meaningful and authentic way, you can build a deeper relationship with your audience than ever before. You can meet them where they are. We've seen this in action from everything from Eurovision and Hell's Kitchen on Roblox to the rap game UK's first clash in Fortnite, as well as immersive activations for global icons like Elton John. Over the next hour, we're going to unpack how broadcasters and producers are turning these shows into fully playable worlds, how they do it, why it works, and what it means for the future of entertainment. So we're going to be talking creative process, platform integrations, and what success really looks like in this space. So to guide us through, we have got an incredible panel who've been at the forefront of building these experiences for some of the biggest IPs in the world. So let's start by meeting them. First up, we've got Sarah Richards. So Sarah Richards is a creative and arts director at Karta, specialising in branded gaming experiences. She works with global clients like Hugo Boss and Adidas to bring their worlds to life on platforms like Roblox and Fortnite. With a background in visual storytelling and a passion for blending narrative, gameplay and brand, she focuses on how TV, music and culture can come together in new and engaging ways. Next up, we have, I'm going to go in order. We've got Rory Newton-Dunn. Rory Newton-Dunn is the head of digital at Rocket Entertainment, leading the digital strategy for none other than Elton John. He's spearheaded groundbreaking campaigns, including Elton John Beyond the Yellow Brick Road on Roblox, an experience and concert which was the first to bridge a digital and physical concert experience, and launched as the highest rated concert experience with one of the best-selling creator emotes. Rory works across music, touring, philanthropy and brand partnerships, ensuring Elton's digital storytelling reaches established and new audiences across digital platforms, amplifying his legacy through innovative experiences. Then next we have Mariel Capisciolto. Mariel is head of digital development at the BBC, shaping the digital and social portfolio for TV. Her brief is to drive innovation and maximise creative opportunities for some of the BBC's biggest titles. She's commissioned gaming activations for Rap Game UK in Fortnite and BBC Wonder Chase in Roblox. And lastly, we have Tom O'Brien from Naked. So Tom O'Brien is the MD of Naked TV. He's an Emmy, RTS and Broadcast Award-winning executive producer and originator who helped grow Naked from a small indie to one of the largest production companies in the UK, who currently produce The Apprentice and The Rap Game for the BBC, Grand Designs for Channel 4, Couple to Thruple for NBC Peacock, love the title there, Buying London for Netflix, Brian Cox Made of Money for Channel 5, and programming for Discovery, Amazon and TLC. With a focus on innovation and creativity first and foremost, he has helped steer the company through startup, acquisition, merger, the COVID years, and now to its current position as a market leader in unscripted formats and documentary programming. The Fortnite and Rap Game UK crossover was actually nominated for a Broadcast Digital and International Webby Award. And lastly, I'm Elle Osili-Wood, so I'm a TV presenter who has done everything from bringing UK audiences the Oscars alongside Jonathan Ross for ITV to taking viewers behind the scenes of the royal coronation for the BBC. As the founder of Playable Ventures, which is a strategic consultancy firm connecting film and television with video games, and a two-time host of the BAFTA Awards, I've been called one of the most influential women in games by Google. So as you can see, we've got a lot to talk about today. I'm very excited to dive in. So I think I'm going to kick things off with you, Sarah. Sorry to do that. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at the work that Karta does. So tell us about what we're going to see.
So we're going to watch a video that's showcasing our Eurovision project that we created for this year's Eurovision contest. And basically this or experience that we built called My Eurovision Party 2025, we tried to get to the heart or the core of what Eurovision really stands for by identifying and translating into a playable space the spectacle, the show, the music, the dancing, the choreography, everything into
and
this
Graham
brand.
Norton.
And Graham Norton, yes.
In digital form.
So we also wanted to really bring to life the diversity and inclusion aspect of Eurovision too, and of how it's all about bringing people together through the shared experience of music. And what we created was this experience where this space was being shaped by the players, and also brought in live updates that were synchronized to the real show to create a second screen experience.
Fantastic. Let's take a look. I love that. It's so fun. It captures, I think, the vibe of Eurovision very, very well. I think if you jump into that, you are feeling that Eurovision feel when we sit down and we watch it.
Absolutely.
I mean, so looking at a project like that, when you first decide, okay, we're doing this, we're bringing Eurovision online, we're taking it into the gaming space, what are the first creative conversations that need to happen?
Well, I think for me, that's probably the most exciting, but also the most critical part of every project, because this is a time where we're trying to determine what is the brand DNA or the IP DNA, and how can we translate that into a playable experience. And I think the challenge, as you said, is trying to capture the energy of 200 million people that globally watch this worldwide.
It's no big ask.
As well as we were planning this all the way back in earlier this year, and trying to think about how we can adapt this experience to all the content that's being produced during the lead up, the actual shows themselves, and then in the aftermath. It was quite hard to think about initially how we were going to adapt to that challenge. But I think with every project that we've ever worked on, the key is to start with that point of view of researching. We were obviously very lucky that we had some Eurovision super fans in-house. So they really helped us also to identify what are those iconic Eurovision moments, and how we could bring that into this experience to make it feel relatable. So we took all of that research and then determined what are those core pillars. And as I said before, one of them is that spectacle, and also the framing of this being within the host country that it's set within. So it was Basel this year in Switzerland, so there was the Alps. There's this electronic music festival as well that takes place in Basel. It's one of the biggest in the world. And also, I guess, again, the diversity and inclusion and how that ties into Eurovision's ethos of united by music. So I guess once we've kind of taken all of that research, we then go away and have the fun of actually putting together different concepts and pitching that towards each other. So my idea that I brought to the table was this idea of this changing environment. So really thinking about how we're going to adapt to the different stages of this experience. So you start in this blank canvas environment where everything is kind of pristine, it's white, there's the sun setting, bringing this kind of anticipation for the nights of the live shows. And then during the live shows, it's the colours, the magic of the stage lighting flooding the experience, the nighttime atmosphere, and then in the aftermath, it's about solidifying the country's colours into the actual landscape itself. So we also then had ideas from the engineering team. So they wanted to bring in this new feature within Roblox, which is the live updates feature, which would allow us to synchronize our experience with the live shows. So we could really give that second screen experience, and you could see what the actual, everything that was happening on screen was also happening within the environment too. And then lastly, the game designer, she came up with this idea of a core loop where you're collecting Eurovision parts by taking part of a rhythm-based game. And the outcome of that is you're contributing towards your country's ranking in a leaderboard. So it's kind of like a soft nationalism aspect. But then also allowing players to customise their own Eurovision parties within the experience. So it was kind of building on top of my idea of making this adaptable space, but allowing players to really bring in the colours of their own Eurovision parties on top of that to just really create this overwhelming energy and chaos that I think really summarises Eurovision.
I feel like that's exactly how I describe it, the energy and the chaos. I mean, I love that because I think there's so much detail in that I think you perhaps wouldn't appreciate if you just jumped into the activation, and it shows that delivering something that feels authentic and feels real and feels valuable to players and audiences, there's actually so many tiny details that go into making that work. And you know, Rory, I imagine that it's the same for you because, of course, I'm going to call him Elton. I feel like we're there. He's not here, but I think he would want that. You know, working for someone like Elton John, I imagine that you want these experiences to feel as authentic as possible. You don't want it to be just a kind of knockoff, cheap, you know, digital version of him thrown in. You want it to feel like the experience that people expect when they are seeing Elton John. So how much do you need to involve talent when it's something that uses their name like that?
I think talent have to sort of 100% be creatively involved, and you know, I think the word authentic is bandied around quite a lot. Everyone's looking for authenticity. I think for me, it's how you can move into a space with integrity and actually to like be in that space with a purpose that makes sense. And I know when we were looking into, you know, how we could go into, you know, then back in 2022 when we were doing this, it was Web3, it was Metaverse, when we could move into a digital space, what would be the right fit? And I don't know, is it worth me just showing the...
Yeah, let's take a look at the clip.
Yeah, so I'll just set it up. So
yeah.
It was 2022, Elton was about to perform his final ever North American tour show, and for an artist who had spent 50 years on the road, it was obviously the end of an incredible legacy. We had so many moments that we were using to celebrate this final LA show. Not only was it at the Dodger Stadium, where Elton had performed back in 1975, but we partnered with Disney+. They were doing their first ever live broadcast of a concert performance. And we looked at, okay, what more can we do? How can we bring more and more touch points that extended out this moment, extended out Elton, that people, you know, fans, both, you know, new and existing, could really connect with. And so we looked at Roblox, and there's a really nice part of it that also kind of felt like it might have been the end of Elton's touring career, but this was the beginning of something quite new.
Yes. Yeah.
Roller clip.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It was a lot of fun.
So
we had a lot of fun. But you know, when we were looking at why, and I think it's so important to really, you know, when we were sort of thinking about Elton, who, you know, he's not particularly digitally native. You don't think of him as, you know, one of the new K-pop stars who's really savvy in that area. We had to think about what we could really make as a connection between Elton and Roblox users, and also not only just, you know, Roblox users, but you know, we had to think about where was the right place, and we really felt like Roblox was right for us. They were a team who could see the opportunity. They were really excited, and also Elton's and David's kids were really big Roblox fans, and so they could see the amount of joy that it brought them. And actually, when we had the game ready to like test and show, I got his kids to show it to him, so he could kind of see it through their eyes.
Yeah.
And I think as soon as we knew that it was going to be Roblox, it was like, okay, how do we then connect with a Roblox user? And I think we knew that the music was going to have an impact, of course, that it was going to be a concert experience. We just come off the back of Cold Heart with Dua Lipa, a huge global hit. Tracks like I'm Still Standing, which have been synced with kids' TV films like Sing, like that really connects with a younger demographic. But how could we bring everything else that Elton is? How could we broaden that out? And Elton is the king of self-identity, expression, and truly being yourself. And I think for Roblox users, that's what they really connected with.
Yeah.
People go onto Roblox to be able to express themselves in ways that maybe they can't do day to day, and to dress up their avatars in a certain way and do crazy things. So as soon as we had that, that thing of Elton on Roblox, like that made sense. We could kind of really, and that got everyone really excited. And collaboration was really key. Elton's always been a real supporter of new generations of talent across every sector, art, photography, music. So it was obviously right to partner with young creators on the platform, who then became our own advocates.
Yes.
It was always about doing it authentically on the platform in a way that seemed right to the community. So having those creators as almost spokespeople kind of gave legitimacy to what we were doing. We also partnered with Gucci, who was an existing partner outside of Roblox. So there was all these nice touch points. Innovation was also really key. We talked about this IRL moment where if people had become a VIP, got their VIP pass by earning enough yellow bricks within the experience, they could then they would take a selfie in the backstage booth, and then that was put up on the Jumbotrons at the actual concert. And we had to extend, we were meant to finish the Roblox concert at midnight on the Sunday, and the number of users that we saw coming from seeing this moment, and then the social traction that we had in response, of people recording it in the stadium, we extended the concert another 24 hours. So that felt really true to Elton, because he is very, he's very forward-looking. He's always been innovative. He's always trying to do new things, to challenge himself and what he can do. So this felt like a really natural fit, actually, when we really got under the bonnet of it. But I think ultimately, now that we've done it in this way where it feels like we've created a foundation, there's a jumping off point that we can go back into that world. We can pick up again where we left off from, and we can create future activations, other ways that we can engage with those fans that we made a couple of years ago through Roblox. But I think ultimately, if we're looking at how any IP or artist or brand goes into a space, it has to feel like an extension of them. Elton was so involved creatively. It's every moment kind of from the rock that was the Crocodile Rock to the Jumbotron plane that flew over. It was all from this rich toy box that he's spent 50 years creating. So that felt right. It was just an extension of him, just in a completely different format that people might not expect.
Yeah. I mean, I love one of the kind of words in there was an evolution. And it's funny because, as you said, it wouldn't be the first thing you think of. Of course, you wouldn't think Elton John, Roblox, the perfect fit. But you're right, it does, the way it was delivered, the way it was developed, the way it brought the fans in, and new fans in, does feel like an evolution of what he does best. I think, Tom, I'd love to come to you next, because I think when we think, as we said, that we wouldn't have thought of perhaps Elton John and Roblox as a perfect fit. When we look at something like the rap game, we would think, okay, this is something that belongs in this world. So tell us a little bit about what we're going to see from you.
So this is our rap game times Fortnite collaboration. It tries to take our gold standard format, the rap game, and port it into Fortnite, which is obviously one of the most played games in the world right now. The sort of top line of it was to create the first video game rap battle. So that got some press headlines and brought people to the game. And the origin of it really was just like probably a lot of people in this room. I've got a young son and daughter, and just playing endless Fortnite. But it went from kind of like dropping in to play an hour to like being on it for 5 hours. And it was like they weren't just playing, they were just in the forum talking to their friends about school and hanging out. It was basically, I mean, this is maybe obvious to a lot of people, but it wasn't to me. It's morphed into a social media platform where kids are just hanging out all the time, and it's not like those horrible ones that Jonathan hates talking about, causing anxiety. Yeah. These are like benign, technicolor, friendly, kid friendly. Yeah. So just wanted to kind of get the game in there somehow, like however we could. So spoke to Fiona at the BBC, spoke to Amelia, who's our CEO, Spoke to James as well and everyone else who was involved, and basically tried to collect the money together, which, as we know, is as big part of a job now as anything else. Yeah. And then partnered up with a game design company called Hazimation, who had sort of had expertise in putting IP into Fortnite. They'd done it before. And then Trent, who I think is here, who's our executive producer on the series. Is he here? Is Trent here?
Trent, put your
maybe
hands
he's done a runner.
Oh, he's gone.
I just wanted to give him a bit of credit.
Everyone remember that. Yeah.
But he's missed it now. He sort of works closely with Hazimation to kind of put the worlds together and align them and create this rap battle. And the incredible thing about it is, which, again, people who work on games day to day probably know this, once we'd created the game, there was zero gatekeepers. It was on and playable the next day. There was no oh, we're going to have to govern this, or is it going to be okay? We're going to have to check everything. It was there and playable. And after the year that everyone had last year, where we just couldn't get anything on air, couldn't get any money, couldn't get anyone to agree anything. It was to have something on like that was just so amazing as a creative. But anyway, look, this is the YouTube video which kind of promos it. So yeah, take a look.
Yeah, beautiful. I absolutely love that. Again, it's another, like you said, it just feels right in that world, doesn't it? It's where it belongs.
Yes.
For you, how did you know that? What for you looking at a show that makes you think, this needs that expansive universe? Yeah,
well, you touched on it before. I just knew from the beginning it clicked. Rap and video games have had a long association for decades. When I was growing up, I was playing, I think it was PS2, Wu-Tang Shaolin style, where you could choose which Wu-Tang clan member you were, and you each had martial arts weapons, and you beat each other up, and it was so good. And then there was Parappa the Rapper, I don't know if anyone remembers that, a colourful, crazy, fun rap game. And then more recently, the obvious examples are, the big Fortnite concert by Travis Scott, which I think maybe you beat it now, but was at the time probably the most subscribed video game concert.
27 million people watched it.
27 mil. So that was obviously groundbreaking. And then again, because reference my son, he was encountering all these rappers old and new through Fortnite, through the skins. It was Eminem, it was buying the Snoop Dogg skin, Juice WRLD, and encountering their music. And it's they just click as worlds. And I just sort of felt it in my gut. And obviously the team and everyone working on it just knew that straight away. But I think in a bigger, broader sense, what works? I mean, we're at the beginning of this, we're trying to work it out now, but I think TV shows with winners and losers, cinematic worlds like The Traitors and Squid Games that you can expand out, just stuff that kind of resonates like that, basically, that feels big and broad enough. Yeah. And I was looking at examples of where, this is quite bad to say in a room full of TV people, but examples of where it really didn't work.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And we're kind of running jokes in the games community about where TV IP had been converted into a game and it just really hadn't worked. And that was we'll talk about the Roblox version in a minute, the Kitchen Nightmares. So I don't know if you saw, about 10 years ago, somebody tried to convert Kitchen Nightmares into a restaurant simulator. And a bit do you remember in Microsoft Word, there was that tiny little, what's he called?
Clip it.
Yeah. Basically, Gordon Ramsay was that, and he was trolling the player, effing and blinding at him, shouting. It was really unpleasant. And then every minute they tried to sort of try and get you to go out and buy his cookbook or go and eat in his restaurants. And it was just terrible, and it was so dry and boring. So that was an example of where I think they basically didn't match the kind of, TV IP to the correct medium. We produced a game for an existing game with all of its underlying architecture and an audience ready, but there they just tried to convert it. They thought they had more on their hands than they really did, and there was no underlying game there. So that's that. You've got to match the kind of, I think, IP to the correct medium, really, more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think, I think it's what we've talked about a lot in TV over the last couple of years, which is about meeting audiences where they are and not, we're desperate. We've been for such a long time trying to bring in more audiences, and as you said, it's been a tough time, in every point, but I think it is about going out and finding them where they are and adapting our storytelling skills. Which, leads me perfectly to you, Mariel. Because, of course, the BBC is at the forefront of storytelling. I think that is something that the BBC has always been known for, is this strong innovation in the storytelling space and really trend-setting immersive experiences. For me, some of my favourite evolutions of what games were are really early kind of ARG, alternate reality games that the BBC made. I think, and particularly when I talk to kind of legendary game designs about their influences, the BBC comes up so much because of what it does. Is it just innovates in that space so well. So I mean, we're going to take a little bit of a look at what the BBC's been doing recently. Do you want to intro us?
Yes, of course, and just to add to the conversation about translating TV IP into metaverse, I think it's quite important. It has been said before, but just we had tried before unsuccessfully because we were not meeting the audience with their own terms. It's sometimes the IP might feel right, but if it's a lift and shift kind of execution of like, you know, we'll take it to the metaverse, but we'll make traitors with exact gameplay as the show. That doesn't necessarily work. You have to kind of know your audience. Since Sarah, you were saying kind of like getting the DNA of what Eurovision is and translating that into a gameplay that is relevant. That is quite important into building a successful iteration in the metaverse. It's not just that the brand is a good fit, it's the platform and what users are doing and the behaviors that you're meeting the users with that is quite important in creating something that is successful. So yeah, we've been experimenting quite a bit on this space. I mean, we partnered quite a lot, like Rap Game and Eurovision are two of the examples, but we've also have Wonder Chase, and we've done collaborations with Wimbledon, which we'll see.
Let's take a look.
Yeah, I thought that.
Okay. I mean, again, it's just another one that, like you said, you've got that DNA exactly right. Like even simple things, you know, Sarah, you said the same thing about the Eurovision, that having collectibles, having these moments, that understanding what people want in these worlds, how they spend their time in them, and what will provide value. I think that's something that I have a lot of conversations with production companies, studios, broadcasters about is, as you said, we're not just sticking a logo on something, it's what value does it provide to audiences.
Yes.
So I'd be interested to kind of come to you first, Mariel, and then perhaps open it up to everybody. Is, for you, what does success look like in this space?
Yes, I mean, there's different types of execution that we've experimented with. There's definitely a moment where we're using the metaverse platforms as a touch point in our marketing campaigns, in our launch of shows. Rap Game is a good example of that, where we're trying to bring awareness of the show. We're trying to reach a younger audience where the media habit, as you also said, is very much linked to gaming, and they spend crazy amounts of time playing games and in these spaces, so it's trying to reach them where they are to bring awareness of those shows. And those are kind of bespoke and have specific metrics. Wonder Chase is an always-on world that we build on Roblox. We are always live, and we are refreshing it every 2 months. That's why we have so much material to show on this space, because every 2 months we are creating a fresh experience. So if you go to Wonder Chase now, you're not going to see Wimbledon, you're going to see Greg James' Summer Escape, which is a collaboration with Radio 1, and we are releasing new items, or as it's called, UGC, those skins that you use to personalize your avatars every day. So we are always working in that space, and there we're looking at the long-term growth of that audience and the engagement on that world in a different way as we see a specific activation. And then the second screening experiences as the Eurovision, as you see with Destination X, that is about bringing people together around a live moment. So they're all slightly different. But I think overall, if I had to distill how do you think about success, I would say there is an element, obviously, of quantity, how many users are coming to the experience. I think we all care about, about that, about the scale that we're reaching. Like Wonder Chase is a good example of how it has built over time. We're now hitting around 6 million users, or about to hit 6 million users, not just yet. But
if everyone
logs
on now, we could.
If you please go on Roblox Wonder Chase. And I think the main thing is also quality, and quality in like, I think we're all used to working on social platforms and know what engagement is, the like, the share, the comments. This is quality measurement in a completely different way, because it's the world experience. You're building a complete gameplay. You want users to feel satisfied. You have ratings, and you want people to rate it well. You want them to bring your friends. So you're looking at metrics like time spent, the rating of your experience. I think you put like the highest rated.
It's so important.
It's so important. How many items you're releasing, how fast they're selling out. So you're looking at all these kind of signals that tell you that you're having a good experience. I mean, on Eurovision, we even had like the commissioning team. This is anecdotal, should never be quoted as scientific, but like, oh, my kids played Eurovision, they loved it, and it's like, okay, that's exactly what I want to hear, because that's what you're building in. You're building engagement in these worlds. You're not necessarily just there for the reach. You're just not going into a platform in the same way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that thing on dwell time, because we were saying we need to go where people are, but a new generation is on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Snapchat. They are there, but you've got them for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
When you've got engagement times of like 9 to 11 minutes, which I think is what is averaging on Roblox, so you might know on Fortnite where the numbers are bigger. That's a meaningful connection that you're creating. And I think we're so used to, I come from a marketing background, and I think there's a transactional nature sometimes to a lot of marketing activity on social media. What is the call to action? Is it, even if it's a like, share, that is still a metric by which I'm, deeming success. To have an experience where actually community feedback and like someone going, I loved this, and being able to talk about that rating in a holistic way. That's a meaningful connection with someone.
You've also got core childhood memories there, right? Like I remember playing games, and I have very happy memories of like particular games I was playing. I don't remember ever liking something on social media though.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So you're creating
Hundreds
core
of
childhood memories for BBC viewers of the future, which is quite incredible, really.
I kind of feel like this generation that's coming up is more about being involved in creation. They don't want to just consume, they actually want to be part of it, they want to amplify that. And I think Minecraft was a really incredible example of this year, where they're filming, or the cinemas are kind of struggling to get audiences that of adolescents age to come to the cinema, but actually they found that it went completely off the charts, viral, even with older generations. Like they had Jack Black, who didn't want to see him. But I think like there was just this whole viral trend around like the chicken jockey and the warnings of going into the cinema that you'll be kicked out if you throw popcorn or shout. But I think it just shows the power of this generation and how they consume, then they film their live reactions, post it to TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and then it fuels more engagement into the actual original source itself.
And I think that democratization of content, like this, that's Web3. That's the idea that they're, providing. It's not just ingesting; it's actually creating. And I think you're so right that actually, to feel like, when they're part of something on Roblox, they're making something. I think that's what is the real connection, and it's also tied back to that childhood memories. There's so much identity based in that now.
Yeah, absolutely. You also have. Sorry, we're really going off piece.
I love it.
But TV's biggest problem, it was designed in an era where you make a season and then you wait a year or two until another season comes out, right? What's happening in the off season? Nothing. The fandom are frustrated, or they're just about entertaining themselves with what might happen. Obviously, the whole thing about games is they're omnipresent, playable anytime, craft a new story every day, and that's like incredible. Fortnite goes even further. You're dropping new seasons every 4 weeks with new skins, new levels, new guns. So, the best thing about the rap game for us was when the show finished, there was something people could still engage with. There was still a touch point. There was still a playability that could join between that long gap between seasons. And that's an incredible marketing tool, and sort of where TV needs to get to really like juice the engagement when you've got it. In my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And again, this is a conversation I have time and time again is, I will talk to people in film and TV who perhaps are not gamers, have never enjoyed games, don't really understand the point, are very much of that, era where they think it's a waste of time. And, and I'll talk about how it creates this expansive universe, at a time when, as you said exactly, we have fans in between seasons coming up with theories, and now instead of just perhaps typing onto a forum where they, frustratedly expressed who they wanted to get together, they go and build in Fortnite or in Roblox, and they create these worlds. If you look at Disney, they've just paid $1.5 billion to invest in Epic Games, obviously the makers of Fortnite, because they want to create expansive universes for their IP. Now, is it running into trouble because they suddenly realise people can do whatever they want with that IP in there? Yes, but that aside,
But this is a really important point as well. You talked at the beginning about sort of creative conversations and how does that all begin. Look, the thing is, again, TV people, I'm from a TV background, we control everything in the edit, from the first kind of word that's said to the final credit.
Yeah.
The whole point about games is you have to hand the world over to people and let them do whatever they want. And that can come with negative press stories, it can come with horrible things, it can come with heroic things, incredible things, individual stories for each of those people. So you have to get like comfortable, or IP owners and channels have to get comfortable with like going, yeah, we can't protect this anymore. Here, go and run away with it and have fun with it. Yeah. And that's quite a big step that a lot of people, especially the more valuable IP properties, won't want to take. Yeah. But they've got to, because you have to hand it over really to keep it living.
Yeah. I think you can do it in, coming from looking at after an IP of which, has a huge legacy and we're very protective of. Yeah. There are ways to do it that isn't like,
yes, guardrails.
You can do it creatively and collaboratively. I think that's the whole. My connection to the point you're making is this idea that it's not about helicoptering in, and it's not saying this is what we're doing, and it's not about being exploitative. It's about working collaboratively with the community they're defining what it is, and you just need to understand what they're saying, and then find your connection. Back to your point about DNA, how you connect to it authentically.
Yeah, because I often think for a long time, film and TV has quite often spoken to audiences, but games, they're having a conversation with them. And so it is about finding a way to make them feel like they're a part of that conversation. And it doesn't mean, as you said, often handing over everything, which I think people can be scared of. I mean, Tom, I'd love to talk to you about this because I think in particular, how do you kind of sell creating those worlds? As you said, you've had to go around, get the money to make them, get all the buy-in that you have to make a world like that, when it's not necessarily just about driving viewership back to the show, is it? So how do you kind of sell what that standalone ecosystem is and its value when it's not, as we would have done before, being like, and how does it get eyes on the show?
Look, just being honest with you, like the view from my point of view was not to just drive back to iPlayer at all. It was to see if we could kind of creatively and technically align these two worlds and do a cool thing and all learn from it and take one step toward the future, which we in a time where we all need to be doing that. So it wasn't really about hitting iPlayer. And then, a weird thing happens sometimes when you set off with these sincere kind of beginnings. Like, it got nominated for an award, it got hundreds of thousands of impressions. The new series launched higher than just, brilliant, that's excellent. But it wasn't really about driving back to iPlayer. And just to go back to my point really before, it was about just creating a touch point, a perennial touch point that fans of the show could just drop into whenever they wanted in between seasons, and just create a kind of eternal presence for the show beyond. There's only so many times you can watch a clip. There's only so many times you can re-watch Rap Game. But you can drop into Fortnite Rap Game and tell a different story every day. That's endless. It's incredible. Like, what an amazing piece of technology that you can do that. So yeah, that's kind of what I would, I guess, how I would justify it. Yeah. But mainly because it was just a really cool thing.
Yeah. And always tell me that it's driving back to iPlayer.
But more people did watch the show, so I don't think we have the data to piece the two things together, can we?
It's when you go to when you're working off platform, same with social media, the journeys are not direct. But we make sure, for example, successful for us is that it was heavily branded with iPlayer, that we're getting the BBC brand out there, that we are making people aware that there's a program, people that might not necessarily be coming to our platforms in the first place. So I think we all accept that there is an indirect link to that, and it's near kind of incredibly hard to mesh, like link it up, right? It's not, the data is not there, it's not available. However, we do it with the intention of increasing the awareness of the BBC brand and driving people back to iPlayer.
And I do think, there is something to be said for, we kind of talked about how much young people, how much time they spend in these worlds. It is their third space, it is their liminal space. Young people today spend twice as much time in game with their friends than they do with them in real life. 58% of young people under 16 said that they feel most like themselves inside a game more than they do in real life. So this is, a world to them. And one of the things I often say to brands is they just expect to see you there. If you aren't there, it's as if you weren't on the high street, or you weren't in a magazine, or you weren't all the places that you would expect your brand to be. You're not there if you're not in that world. So you're right, it is often just about having that building that familiarity with the brand in a space that feels kind of comfortable.
But I think it's to that point, it's an add-on. I think, you know, I've had conversations with some people that it's, you know, especially who are promoting gaming experiences where they're like, you know, social media is dead. This is where it's at now. And it's like, no, it's an addition to. This is, and I guess, you know, one thing that I had to make really clear with internal buy-in was, to your point around conversion and success of, you know, we're not going to see a huge uptick in streams of Elton's. You know, we're not, and like with the Disney conversation, we're not going to see everyone suddenly go and watch the live. This is about, you know, creating something new and deeming success by a completely different metric. And I think that internal buy-in can sometimes be like, well, it's been tricky, yeah.
It's future-proofing as well.
Yeah, totally.
You're trying to talk to that audience who are going to be growing up one day. I think like the other one tiny addition to your point is like, gaming culture is basically becoming youth culture, right? Like we go to this, me and my wife go to Sweden for summer, and we go to this like summer market every year, right? So there's 200 stalls in like a big, it's always interesting to see what they're selling in the children's market stall, right? Year by year. So used to be Lego, then it was like retro toys, like Tamagotchis and stuff. This year, all it was cuddly toys and collectibles of game memes, like Italian brain rot, Healy, like just random stuff. And like my kids are like, oh my God, oh yeah. And I don't even know how they know about some of it, but it's just clear that youth culture's morphing into this entire kind of big virtual kind of game space. So you've got to be in it if you want to. If you want to chase
Italian brain rot is where it's at, you know, quite genuinely.
Look it up if anyone doesn't know what it is.
I mean, so I wanted to come to you because I think something we've also seen is games coming to TV. So working the other way around, we've seen The Last of Us, an enormous success. We've seen Fallout, you know, both games that were captured, I think kind of in what you were saying before, in that their DNA came to TV beautifully, which is something we've not seen done very well with game adaptations before. So what do you think that TV can learn from the way games tell stories and the way they speak to their audiences?
Yeah, I think they can learn a lot, and I think in a sense it's not something new. I think TV shows have always been inspired by comic books or novels or from theatre, and I think this is just the most recent or the latest version of storytelling that really connects with a young audience. And I think the reason why it's so engaging is because it is, as you mentioned, it is the new social media. It's social gaming now, that this is the future. It's the space in which players can come into and they can express themselves. And in a sense, it's almost a revolt against the minimalism that we have seen in social media and in corporations in the last decade or so. Now it's about expressing yourselves and finding your cultural niche within gaming, and whether you jump into an experience for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it's all about these kind of short attention spans, short cycle gaming loops, where players can come in predominantly to meet their friends that may not even be based, or they may not have even met them.
Yeah, quite often, yeah.
But they go in there so they can show a different side of their personality and play in this world with your friends and play out a story. And I think when it comes and translates into TV or film, much like with Minecraft or The Last of Us, it's already building upon something that they're sitting at home, they have their own emotional connection with this game already. And it's just then going, as I said before, it's then filtering back into that loop of it inspiring new TikTok videos or YouTube shorts, which then filter back into the show itself. So I think it's just this really ever-expanding, I guess, environment of like these new content pieces being created by these younger generations.
Yeah, I do love that idea that it kind of all feeds into itself. You're right, because often we do just look at it very linearly and we say, okay, this inspired this, but actually it is just, it's coming from everywhere. All these, you know, if we look at something like, I worked recently with some of the creators of Float, which was the BBC series that was like 10-minute episodes. And it was so fantastic, and you talk to young people and they, you know, said, oh, it's obviously because of TikTok or it's because of this. And so I love that we're seeing different bits of influence come from everywhere. And then they were saying, oh, we're going to try and make our own like little series on TikTok. And I was like, how funny that's where they got it from. And then they were thinking, oh, they did this, we should do it on TikTok. And that's actually, you know, what had inspired it. So, right, I can see questions piling in. So I guess we're going to jump over to questions. So, all right. I will obviously target any that are very pointed, but otherwise feel free to jump in, or I'll just assign if nobody does. So first of all, we had, and sorry if I pronounce any of these names horrendously, Sarah Shirazi said, what role, if any, does public R&D funding play in these projects or developments? So I guess, I feel like Mariel, that's probably a you question. No?
Yeah, none.
None?
Well,
Yeah.
there is
That's
tax
okay if it's
breaks,
none.
right? So
Yes.
for games, you can
Yes.
get tax British
Yeah.
games. If they pass the British test, you can get a tax reduction.
Mm.
So if we're talking about sort of public, and I think BFI
Yeah.
run that, don't they? And they decide
right.
whether it passes or not. So if that's what we're talking about, if that's
Yeah.
what somebody's getting at, like can we find pots of money
Yeah.
from public institutions to help fund games?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, if you pass the cultural test,
Yeah.
the British cultural test, then
Yeah.
yes.
I would also say, yeah, not much. Video game tax relief is about it. Okay, great. John Knowles said, when engaging with young audiences on third-party platforms, what challenges and considerations do you face with inevitably trying to monetize your IP? Whoever would like to kind of jump in there. I guess, has anybody...
I mean, yeah, we've seen great success from the virtual merchandise that we released on the platform. And really that has always been defined as a byproduct. It was never, ever our intention. I mean, it's, you know, these games are huge investments, and the fact that it got to the point that it could wash its face was a brilliant place for us, because that was another sort of, you know, it showed that the community were engaged, but that has to come with a really thorough strategy. The merchandising strategy on a game like Roblox with limited drops, scarcity, influencers, it's big, and so it's a huge undertaking in its own right. So I think that's something to really be important to be aware of. And again, it can never be exploitative, and you really need to watch the value of your items and the engagement from the community as to whether that's actually something that they're looking for from you. I suppose you must have it working with, like, with Adidas, and, you know, like, that's probably a huge part of their brand and what they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you just touched upon about like the strategy that you have with scarcity and how many items that you drop, it can also really impact the ratings of your experience. And I think that happened with Eurovision, that we ran out of UGC supplies and then our ratings started to drop. So it's trying to plan to make sure that you reward players and continue to reward them using that scarcity metric. I think actually one of the most popular items that we had out of that experience was the horse head item, and that was really playing into the trend that is on platform, which is wearables, head wearables. They are massive at the moment, so I think it's also about understanding what is trending on platform and going after that.
You can monetize or not monetize. We don't monetize on our experience just because we're publicly funded. We're not monetizing, but it's a choice that you can make in these platforms. And if you're an IP owner, you would be looking at monetization of that.
Yes, yeah. I would also maybe kind of slightly expand that question, which, again, Mariel, I'll come to you for this one, which is, and actually, Sarah, you as well, I've worked with brands like McDonald's who are very, very, careful around who they work with, because obviously they are predominantly a brand for children, and so they have lots of caveats around what they do and don't want in a space, what they do and don't want from, an online audience. So how do you kind of work with that? Because it's not just the monetization aspect that can become difficult, it is what the space itself is. So how do you kind of protect that from, I guess, a BBC perspective? There are kind of worlds and spaces within Roblox or Fortnite or that you perhaps wouldn't want to engage with, or elements of it that might be difficult, and the same, I guess, with big IPs, I don't mind.
It's hard to answer it in general terms. I think we go project by project, and we look at the platform fit, we look at where we can do collaborations. So we've done collaborations with other Roblox works before. We integrated Borders, which is a BBC Three drama, into Paradise High, for example.
Yeah.
But we don't do it very often. We have our own world and we operate within our own world. So that allows us to operate within our main terms. Same with Eurovision. It's an EVU project. We work all jointly in setting up the parameters and how we work across that, and Karta was instrumental in kind of bringing that to life.
Yeah, and I think on Roblox itself has also taken huge leaps forward in terms of safeguarding, in like I think critically last year was bringing in the parental controls. I also have a 9-year-old daughter, so this is kind of a godsend for me that I could actually be able to control how often she's going on the platform. Also making sure that she's age restricted, and you can disable chats, you can disable global chats as well. So I think Roblox as a platform is really trying to lead the way.
Yeah, no, they are fantastic. I will say there was a fantastic My Little Pony activation in there, which one of the things I loved about the way it marketed itself was it just marketed itself straight to parents because it knew children would find it. And so it was like, there's no chat. They can't spend money in this world. They can't, you know, they literally did, you know, great fake TripAdvisor things that were like the best place to send your kid this summer. You know, you don't need to spend money. And I thought that was brilliant because it was exactly addressing those kind of concerns and how Roblox can fight them off. Yeah, jump in.
Sorry, just to jump on the commercial element. One thing that Roblox are now doing is a Shopify integration, and they have Walmart, you know, the world's biggest retailer, people are actually buying physical items through a Shopify integration and going off platform, and it'd be interesting to see what other integrations they get in, both to broadcasters and other, you know, for us from a music point of view. But I think that's something to be, when they are going that commercially, strategically aligned, it's really interesting to know actually what the future of the platform will be and whether it will become more commercial and what the community reaction from that will be.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right, well, I'm going to go to one last question. Which was from Sylvie Metcalf, who asked, what role do you think that your core social media team should play in supporting these kind of immersive world-building projects? Or do you think that it's a separate thing from social media? So whoever wants to kind of dive in.
We always promote it on social media. I think it's good to think about it in a similar way as when we are promoting a TV show, we're also promoting a Roblox experience in a similar way. We're creating clips, we are talking sometimes to influencers to go and play the experience so that they can talk about it. It's like you would think about it as like the marketing of that experience is as important as building the experience. So we would look at it kind of very much holistically in terms of like how we're doing it. So Summer Escape that we currently have right now live, we partnered with Greg James and Radio 1. We did some clips introducing that to the Radio 1 audience. It's going on Radio 1, it's going on Greg James' account. Yeah. And that kind of helps kind of fuel that discovery of the world on Roblox because people have to go to it. It's not necessarily that even if you're on Roblox, you get it immediately.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that as well, because when we're usually working with brands and clients, we'll put together a marketing strategy for them, which is going after influencers and creators that are on YouTube Shorts or on TikToks, where the Gen Alpha or Gen A are spending a lot of their time too. Like most recently, we did a activation for Elle, and there was an influencer called Ibella, which is a huge gaming. She's probably early 20s. She's from Gen Z, and she goes and plays these Roblox games and creates this content from the games. And my daughter absolutely loves watching her. So when she found out that we'd worked with her to promote our experience at Elle, she obviously asked to get a little video from her. But I think that's kind of the key, is to go after the influencers that are engaged with that audience.
Yeah. Which very helpfully answered a question we didn't get to about Twitch streamers. So yes, Anonymous, I hope that answered your question as well. Well, that's all we've got time for. I mean, I'm going to very, very, very quickly ask you to give your one tip. So if somebody's sitting here now, they're thinking, do you know what, I want my show or my production or, you know, whatever in that space, what would be your kind of one sentence, how to get started? Just thought I'd throw that out there. Just an
don't worry about the outcome massively, and don't worry about it all pointing back to linear TV. Just dive into it, and it will start to work it out because we need to. You know,
I guess obviously, like working with experts in the space, like Karta, for example. I guess we're kind of the bridge between the brand, the IP, and the players, and we can help connect the dots. And I think, as you said, it's about testing the waters and seeing how that can grow and working with that agile mindset. If you're producing this MVP project, but you listen to that player feedback, the community response, the data, and you build from there.
Fantastic. Mariel, I'm very ready for your incredible one-sentence tip.
Well, find the right IP. but like try to distill it in the right way, that element of being literally get your permissions in order, check your rights, what can you do, what you cannot, it is a rights game as much as it is kind of like going into the platform. You need to make sure that you have permissions from everybody that is involved in the creation of that IP to go into this platform, so get that right, and then, as you say, give it a go. I mean, as part of how you learn on these spaces is by doing and by going into them, so like taking the risk, an initial creative risk to do it is a good way of learning about it.
Fantastic. Rory, take us home.
I think just like anything, think about user first and just think about your why and what's the connection with that, with that community.
Absolutely, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. As we said, we had so much to talk to you. We didn't get through all the questions. Huge thank you to you for questions, and a huge thank you to our incredible panellists. Thank you so much.